Today we can talk about identifying your problems before your solutions. Maybe
Mm,
because there's so many
yeah.
tools out there, there's so many really cool tools, and you feel like you want to make use of them and stay ahead of the curve and all of that kind of stuff. And maybe part of the discussion has to be like what problem are you actually trying to solve? Um, and how does this actually make a difference?
Yeah, I
What do
think
you
it,
think?
it boils down to kind of like that conversation of both human performance or your staff or team's performance, as well as how that impacts your business and your operations performance, and looking at measuring both of those things. So assessing your team members, but also assessing the business operations, which really to some extent is the performance of the team members, but sort of from a different angle. And that could be looking at everything from environment, cleanliness, tasks that are or are not performed well, the experience that somebody has when they walk into your business, if you are a retailer or you're a what clothing retailer or grocery store or a restaurant. What do people experience when they walk in the door? How are they greeted? What is the customer experience like? And so, assessing that, evaluating how your business is operating, and then also evaluating how your staff is performing. And that can be one-on-one evaluations as well as a more holistic business evaluation. Um, Doing that first before you guess and try to make changes or roll out training or roll out any type of intervention or change within your organization is probably a good approach, um, in general. And there's, I guess a number of ways to do it. There's right down to the analog way of getting a pen and a piece of paper, but you still have to think about, even if you're going to do it in an analog format with a pen and a piece of paper on a clipboard and walk around your facility, or sit down with an employee and have them demonstrate some skill or some competency. Um, you have to think about what it is that you're evaluating. I think that's the first step. um, what are we evaluating? Why are we evaluating it? Why is it important that um, people perform in a certain way? And then how do we evaluate it well? I think those are kind of three pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of like the importance of like vision. I think all these tools, they're solutions looking for a problem, and then I think for in a lot of ways, you would think like I think you have this sort of level of you're trying to get your team all on the same page. You're all trying to work together. Then I feel like you have people, working, directly with customers, directly with food, directly with whatever, right? And then I think you have this middle layer that's supposed to manage and maintain and all of that kind of thing. And you're looking for the people who have checklists and are performing audits and compliance and things like that. And then I think there is like, well, compliance to what or audits for to what end, right? I think there are some obvious things like, in terms of safety, in terms of things like that. But I think beyond that, there is sort of this creative vision area of every company that is what are we actually working towards? What is our vision of the world? Even if you work in something, as simple as, food or something like that, like everything has a vision behind it. And
Mhm.
I think that's easy to take for granted. I think fleshing out what that vision is, I think what the new tools should let us do is not so much become the focus of, expanding that middle layer, expanding the amount of checklists that we have, expanding the amount of, things that you have to scan and the amount of things that, like, I feel like what it lets us do is it lets us, um, identify a vision better and execute on the vision better, and maybe put more time into that vision. It's sort of like there is that the technology lets you get to a more granular level, but it's a more granular level of like a big picture vision. So for example,
Yeah.
uh, you take for granted that there are little innovations and things that completely change the way you behave in even like the simplest sort of setup, right? Like if you go to certain grocery stores, you're expected to measure the food yourself. You put it on a scale, you write down how much it weighs and things, and then you bring that to the cashier, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one way of organizing your business. And in other ones, you bring the produce to the cashier, and the cashier has a scale, and they weigh your food, right? So it's sort of like, well, which one's right, which one's wrong? Like there's not really a right or wrong, and I think different countries do it differently, or there's tendencies to do it differently, and between businesses, they do it differently. And so I feel like there are different ways that we can envision how grocery shopping works, and grocery shopping is like just an ancient thing. But you can bring in sort of and you think about it and it is sort of like, well, what's the difference, right? Like is it better to let the user do more, or is it better to have a cashier do more? What does that feel like to the end user? What does that, does it save you on labor? Does it add to labor? Is the whole point just to reduce labor, or is there something else about a self-serve sort of setup that, maybe people actually enjoy? It's not just about saving labor. It's people might enjoy doing certain things themselves in that context. And so I feel like there is this big picture vision and as the end user, you might not really care that much about it, but over time, all of these things have changed, and now we have self-checkouts and technology introduces new things, and it's sort of like with each one of these, there is sort of a vision change